the crimes keep a-comin', you blink and you'll miss them too. Here's the operator bringing you some of Lasterday's news.
Welcome to a new thing. It's an added thing, not a replacing thing. It's Lasterday's news. You all know me. I'd never be able to do a daily show, so this is as close as I get. Is it yesterday's news? Maybe. Is it from last week? Maybe-er. I've just come to realize that during my search for the stories behind 911 calls episodes, I'm bombarded by news about recent events, many of which come and go and get little to no coverage beyond a small local area of news or the country. Still, some of the stories are poignant and pretty interesting, and sometimes they're downright crazy. So where better to hear these stories than here? I'll be rounding up the most interesting ones in their raw form and presenting them to you in between the deep dive episodes. Many of these may, in time, qualify for their own deep dives. Stories that just hit the wire, worthy of attention, with all the potential for future follow-up. So, here we go. September 15th, 2025, a Grand Prairie, Texas homeowner faces potential felony charges after he was shot by police officers who responded to, get this, the wrong address due to a 911 dispatch system error. The incident, which occurred early Friday morning, September 12, 2025, has sparked dual investigations by the Dallas County District Attorney's Office and Grand Prairie Police Department's official Office of Professional Standards. So, let's dive in to what happened in this sock full of soup. On Friday, September 12, 2025, at approximately 1:45 a.m., Grand Prairie police officers responded to what they believed was an active disturbance call in the 3000 block of Holly Hill Drive. Due to a computer-aided dispatch or CAD system error, officers were directed to the wrong address, the home of Thomas Simpson and his family, no relation to the cartoon. Let's hear a smidge of the interview with what Thomas says went down. I'm not laughing. This is crazy.
One, two over there, and inside the house is several more. I never expected anything like this in this neighborhood. As soon as the door opened, I saw their badge. I threw the gun to the ground, got shot in the leg. What was going through my mind is they already had like a SWAT team over in that corner over there with the riot shields. I'm like, what is going on? And is my family okay from all the shots being fired into my house?
He was lucky that the thing that was going through his mind wasn't bullets. So Thomas gives an interview of the incident, and the dispatch error occurred when the 911 caller's cell phone address was incorrectly auto-populated in the system. So this is the original caller, not Thomas. No, not Thomas. The 911 caller, whoever that was, their cell phone address was incorrectly auto-populated in the system. Remember, whoever made the 911 call was not at Thomas's address and was still in distress when police arrived at the wrong house, sending officers to Simpson's neighbor's house instead of actually the disturbance location. This type of error can occur when 911 calls originate from mobile phones rather than landlines, as cellular location data can be less precise. We'll touch on that in a minute, though. So here's a timeline of events on how things went down in those early morning hours. About 1:30 to 1:45 a.m., Simpson's dogs begin barking, and they alert him to activity outside of his home. Around 1:45 a.m., officers arrive at the wrong address and begin knocking on Simpson's door. According to police, they say they knocked for approximately 5 minutes in what they describe as a well-lit area. Air quotes. Because I don't know for sure. Body cam footage will tell us whether that's true. Approximately 1:50 a.m., Simpson, believing burglars were attempting to break into his home, retrieved his firearm and opened his garage door. Within seconds upon seeing police badges, Simpson states he immediately dropped his weapon to the ground. Officers opened fire, striking Simpson in the leg and continuing to fire approximately 8 rounds total, even after Simpson was on the ground. Okay. Let's see what else he has to say.
The one there, one down there, over in the wall there.
My wife in bed, and those shots are going straight towards her. So I was terrified that she got shot while she's in bed.
Are my kids okay?
Once I saw the sign off their badge from the lights, I tossed it to the side. I get shot in the leg. I drop to the ground to comply, and then they open fire inside the garage after I'm on the ground trying to comply. So that's an extreme, excessive amount of force. When they're at the wrong address, because I would have never raised my pistol if they would have identified themselves police or Grand Prairie police. Obviously, I'm not going to raise my gun to a cop. But I didn't know.
So the next several hours play out like a fever dream for Thomas and his family.
Well, they ordered them out of the house one by one and put them in handcuffs. Even my children, 13-year-old and 16-year-old, had to sit in the back of a cop car in handcuffs for 4 hours. They did not give me a reason at all. And I asked them, why are you even here?
So what exactly happened? Believe it or not, probably not surprising, we have conflicting accounts on how things went down, which only helps muddy the waters. So the police version is Grand Prairie police state that Simpson exited his garage in an aggressive stance, that's their quote, and pointed a gun at officers, causing them to fear for their lives. They claimed the area was well lit and that they had knocked for 5 minutes before the shooting occurred. Simpson maintains that officers never identified themselves as police, stating, quote, they never said Grand Prairie Police Department. He says he only recognized them as police when light reflected off of their badges as the garage door opened to a certain height, at which point he immediately says he dropped his weapon. So Simpson suffered a through-and-through bullet wound to the leg and was transported to a local hospital. He was treated and he was released the same day. Interestingly, not into police custody. 8 rounds were fired in total, with bullets striking the garage door, interior walls, and rupturing a water pipe. A while back, I covered an analysis of how many walls a standard 9mm bullet could pass through. Suffice it to say, a cheap aluminum garage door isn't going to do much to slow a bullet down, making it possible that rounds could have easily made their way through several layers of drywall if they didn't come into contact with wood, wall studs, or other objects within the walls of the home. The burst pipe caused flooding with 3 inches of water throughout the home. To add to the complexity of this scenario, the family was in the process of moving out of the rental property when the shooting occurred. Probably not at 1 a.m., but, they had been packing some boxes. They're like, hey, let's go to sleep, and then we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll do some more boxes and stuff before moving out, so we'll have boxes to take with us. But with Thomas wounded, they were hindered in that ability to continue with their move out, not to mention the need to nurse a bullet wound.
Even my children, 13-year-old and 16-year-old, had to sit in the back of a cop car in handcuffs for 4 hours while I was at the hospital till I could come back here. There's no way that is standard procedure. Say, so their daddy gets shot, we're gonna talk to lawyers and go after everybody responsible for it. They need to pay. They need to learn there's consequences to their actions. Straight through the front here, come out the back here. They told me they stitched it the best they could, but they can't close it because of the type of wound it is. Getting a little bit of a limp, everyone's making me rest. And I'm like, well, we gotta move, man. We got stuff to do. Let me do my job. All of us are extremely lucky nobody got killed. They're lucky I didn't fire. A slight inconvenience, I'm looking at it. I'm trying to be positive about it. There has to be something positive to come out of it. Hopefully, they'll follow their police procedures in the future, because from what it appears, a lot of the actual procedures were skipped. I understand they're trying to do their job, but they need to do better. I'm just gonna let the court settle all this. They will pay for their mistakes. I am grateful everybody is alive.
Okay. But here's where the story gets weird. Instead of recognizing that they had rolled up to the wrong house and shot an innocent man, the police decided to pursue charges against Thomas. Grand Prairie Police have referred the case to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, requesting that Thomas Simpson be charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon against a police officer, a felony that could carry significant prison time. Former Dallas County prosecutor Russell Wilson provided expert commentary on the case, highlighting several key legal considerations. You've got the Texas Castle Doctrine. So Texas has really strong self-defense laws that protect residents in their homes. But who has the stronger case, the homeowner under Castle Doctrine or the officers claiming they faced a gun pointed at their faces? It hinges on a few facts that hopefully body cams should resolve. Whether officers announced and could be heard, whether the homeowner actually pointed a gun at them, what the lighting and the visibility was, how quickly he dropped the gun, the officer's distance and cover that they might have been taking when that garage door opened or when they were knocking on the door, yada, yada, and whether commands were given and followed. One thing that I found that was kind of interesting in the interview footage was the height of the bullet holes in the garage door. So I'm going to play the first video again so you can see what I mean.
One, two over there, and inside the house is several more. I never expected anything like this in this neighborhood. As soon as the door opened, I saw their badge. I threw the gun to the ground, got shot in the leg. What was going through my mind is they already had like a SWAT team over in that corner over there with the riot shields. I'm like, what is going on? And is my family okay from all the shots being fired into my house?
So if you watch that footage, if you're watching this like on Spotify or something, the first bullet hole he points to is above head height. But if we play out that scenario that both sides agree occurred, Thomas opened the garage door and was fired upon when they recognized that he was in a defensive position and armed with a gun. But if the bullet hole is above the height of a human when the garage door is closed, that space on the garage is hidden as soon as the garage door is raised. And it is completely out of view once the garage is only inches off the ground. Something here kind of doesn't add up. How can you fire upon someone in a garage and put those bullets through a garage door that was allegedly open or opening to reveal Thomas standing inside? Add to that, who chooses to confront a potential intruder by waiting for a garage door to completely open, which would expose you to whatever force was right outside the garage door? If you heard banging on your front door for 5 minutes, as the police claim, wouldn't you head there first And secondly, wouldn't you choose to assess the situation from within the confines and protection of your home before going all Charles Bronson on your invisible foe? Also, I think it's a bit suspect that the glint of the police badges was the trigger that makes you stop and drop your weapon. Really? Really? Your garage door is moving at a snail's pace to reveal almost the entire police battalion in your driveway, and you wait until it's almost all the way up to finish identifying that it's the police standing there? It seems a bit odd to me, but I digress. This soup is getting thicker as we dig in. So here are some Texas self-defense castle doctrine basics, or for those who are attracted to penal codes, that'd be penal codes 9.31 and 9.32. Presumption of reasonableness applies if the homeowner faced someone who was unlawfully and forcibly entering or attempting to enter or removing someone from the home. If officers never cross the threshold, the presumption may not trigger in this case, no pun intended, though general self-defense still possibly could. Self-defense is not justified if the person used force against someone the actor knew or should have known was a peace officer, lawfully doing their duty. Texas has no duty to retreat at home. Being armed at your own residence is not by itself unlawful. So that bumps up against the police department's use of force standard. The constitutional test in this case would be objective reasonableness. Graham v. Connor is the case that set the precedent. So would a reasonable officer in the moment believe there was an imminent threat of serious harm? If they reasonably perceived a gun pointed at them, shooting could be lawful, even if the person turns out to be innocent. So, going back to those attractive Texas penal codes, we've got Texas Penal Code 9.51, also authorizes officers to use force consistent with their duties. So that brings us to the wrong address factor. Being at the wrong location kind of undercuts the lawfully executing duties piece and takes some of the air out of their attempts to charge the homeowner in this case. So whether it was a clerical error, a system error, or whatever, the source of the issue produced a result of law enforcement erroneously advancing on the wrong house, regardless of the outcome of that house. This original error throws a monkey wrench in their, well, we're still going to charge him stance that they're taking. There are many laws that make this most likely unreasonable, but I'll try to keep a light touch on penal codes here for the sake of your earballs. But the system error does not automatically make a shooting unlawful if, at the instant force was used, the officers reasonably perceived a legal threat or a lethal threat. A lethal threat perceived by officers doesn't necessarily have to be tied to the reason that they're there. Consider like a traffic stop where some rando walks up, someone not involved with the traffic stop, and brandishes a weapon at an officer. The officer would use force, even though the reason he's there in the first place is some Karen who ran a stop sign. Perception of a threat doesn't need correlation with any specific investigation that's underway. Naturally, if things get out of hand and force is used by the officer, it'll have to be proven elsewhere through investigation and potential court proceedings. But the bottom line is, if the body cam video ends showing that the homeowner never pointed the gun or dropped it immediately upon realizing they were police, and officers still fired, his castle self-defense claim strengthens and prosecution becomes a lot harder. If it shows a sustained muzzle on the officer's type of threat, the officer's defense is stronger despite the dispatch error. Why hasn't the 911 call audio been released? So active investigations have an exemption in this case. So under Texas Public Information Act, PIA 552.108, agencies routinely withhold records while a criminal investigation or prosecution is pending. I run into this all the time when submitting FOIA requests for 911 calls and other case files. Then there's a privacy and confidentiality clause. Caller numbers and some context are protected, more code numbers. Fine, 552.101 and 772.318 if you really care. Redactions take time, and agencies often hold the full audio until the DA or a grand jury has reviewed it. And then you have coordination with a DA. So if the case is with the DA or headed to a grand jury, prosecutors typically ask agencies not to release the materials that could affect the witness testimony or potentially taint a jury pool, Why hasn't the body cam footage been released then? There's a code called the Texas Occupations Code 1701.661 that allows withholding if release would interfere with investigations or prosecutions. So many departments delay until the DA clears it or the administrative review is sort of buttoned up. So ongoing use of force and internal affairs reviews often trigger the same exemption. So faces of minors, private residents, and medical info require time-consuming edits when it comes to things that may become public, all before the content can be released to the public. So why pursue charges against a homeowner if officers were at the wrong address? If officers report a gun was pointed at them, like I said, that can satisfy probable cause for aggravated assault on a peace officer, regardless of the wrong address. So the file gets sent to the DA. In officer-involved cases, it's common to present everything to a grand jury for a no-bill or bill decision. By referring charges to a grand jury, it preserves their option as how to proceed, and it can prevent the agency from appearing to, prejudice or prejudge a situation. Really quick, a grand jury, if you don't know, is like a preliminary jury. They're used to determine whether a case has enough merit to even withstand further court proceedings. Also, and this may seem to be an imbalanced approach to us normal citizenry, but agencies sometimes refer charges to align with their officers' statements, and they'll preserve defense in anticipated civil litigation potential. The DA may still decline, or the grand jury may no bill, which is another way of saying the grand jury says, you should quit while you're ahead. Notably, though, the wrong address origin makes prosecution a lot harder. It doesn't make it easier, but it doesn't bar referral to a grand jury for review. Another question that the evidence will suss out is, did the police actually announce and bang on the door? So this is a factual dispute here. Body cam audio, any ring door, bell, or neighbor recordings, dispatch logs, all of that would show whether the officers knocked and announced, for how long, and from what position they were in when they did it. Ambient noise like dogs or AC or distance from the cop to earballs, even the time of night and whether the family plausibly couldn't hear them will all be factors in this case, even in the face of evidence that shows that they announced themselves while standing outside a front door in the middle of the night in broad day, doorbell, door, stoplight. Officers often announce at the front door, but if the homeowner is in the back or upstairs, audibility could be poor. So lighting and echo in cul-de-sacs also affect perception. So needless to say, further evidence will become fodder for both the defense and the prosecution in this case. And back to my point about it seeming suspicious that the homeowner didn't respond to the front door, but opened the garage while armed. I guess it's possible that Thomas felt that using his garage was a controlled vantage point with lighting that he controlled and possibility to take cover behind stuff in his garage, I guess. I'd argue that that adds to the police perspective that not only was he armed, but his defensive position was even possibly more imposing if he wasn't out in the open after identifying that he was armed. They could argue, well, if you had nothing to hide, why were you using your garage like a little bunker? And then he could say, I didn't know who you were, all of which starts leveling out once we see more footage. So time will unwind that odd knot. He could also claim to be sleep disoriented. Dogs barking plus indistinct banging could be perceived as a break-in attempt, especially if no clear police is heard by Thomas. This is territory for some creative writing on the part of Thomas's attorneys, I think. The critical question isn't the route he used, but whether at the moment of contact, he reasonably believed unknown intruders were outside, and whether he aimed the gun at officers after realizing they were police. So, further evidence will probably make short work of this situation. Either the police's position will crumble when body cam footage proves their initial efforts to announce were insufficient or not performed in an area deemed suitable for identification, or Thomas will not have a leg to stand on. No pun intended. Because the evidence will prove that there was plenty of announcing and identifying being done by the cops. I kind of think the evidence is going to lean toward cops sufficiently identifying themselves. Thomas said that there was SWAT in position. So this situation wasn't just a situation of a couple cops making a house call. It really makes me wonder about the original 911 call, though, too. Like, what was that call all about to draw out such a gathering of officers in such force? Also, after they realized that they were at the wrong house, did anybody actually find the place where the original call was placed? Are they okay? That should also come to light as this investigation continues, I think. This is bound to happen again. The long and short of it is that cell phones outnumber landlines exponentially these days. So traditional 911 calls from landline delivers a fixed, pre-validated street address called an ANI or ALI to the call taker within seconds. So the dispatcher knows exactly where they're at. It's tied to a known service address in a database. So dispatchers get door level accuracy by default. Not so easy with the cell phone. Cell phones are located in different phases. So you got phase 1, 2, and 3. So phase 1, cell calls are mobile and don't have a fixed address. Location must be inferred or calculated in real time. Then it's passed through multiple systems before it reaches the call taker. Phase 2 gets a little better depending on the device in your hand. So cell towers triangulation or trilateration uses timing and angle across multiple towers. Accuracy can vary really widely, though. So cell towers provide an approximation of the location of the cell phone, but can often report vaguely up to a half a mile from the actual location. So hybrid methods like Apple and Google emergency location, they blend GPS with Wi-Fi SSIDs and even Bluetooth beacons. Then you've got phase 3. It adds the latest tech found in current iPhones and Android devices like barometer readings, which can help dispatchers actually identify how high off the ground the cell phone is. Like maybe it's on a second story or a third story or an 11th story or the first story or a certain height up a mountain or down inside of off of a cliff. I don't want to get too morbid, but could be. I guess if you're off of a cliff, you probably aren't making the 911 call, though. So these readings are often far more accurate, but not universal yet because of the tech variation in phones, and they can still lag or fail indoors sometimes. So the practical upshot here is this case has a lot of angles. It's going to be a while before it all gets settled out. So, as of September 15th, 2025, the Dallas County DA's officer-involved shooting team, which sounds like a club, but it isn't, is conducting an independent investigation. The Grand Prairie Police Office of Professional Standards is also conducting concurrent administrative investigations, and the DA's office will likely present evidence to a grand jury to determine if criminal charges are warranted against either the officers or Thomas Simpson. So the Dallas County District's office says that the grand jury will likely review the case in the coming weeks. I've made multiple Public Information Act requests for the body camera footage and the 911 recordings for this. Under Texas law, the department has 10 business days to respond or seek an exemption from the Attorney General's office. It's a long shot, most likely not going to amount to much at this point, but I like to do my due diligence. I'll continue following this developing story, and I'll bring you updates as more information becomes available. I hope you liked this little diversion into breaking news. It kind of fills a gap where I felt for a long time a lot of interesting stories go undiscovered for one reason or another. Kind of satisfies my need for closure. I cover the case as it stands and put a pin in my notes to follow up regularly to see if there are any new details. That should make for some robust episodes in the future. News stuff plus follow-ups on past stories. I hope you'll continue to lend me your earballs. Now, back to the grind. Those FOIA requests aren't going to FOIA themselves. Hugs, everyone.
You're still here, and we're grateful. Your earballs got some abuse. We're glad that you made it through the operator's Lasterday news.